All right, Last of Us Season 2, Episode 4 breakdown and review. We got this week's episode. We saw a ball sack, we saw torture, and we saw Ellie and Dina run a train on each other. I'm sorry, run on top of a train with each other, not on each other. Well, sort of at the end they did that, but not necessarily. Okay, so let's take this from the top. It is Seattle, day one. They're in the premise of the wolves. They have everyone else, everything going on inside this area, and we get a little sneak peek, a little backstory at the beginning, kind of give us an insight on how the leader of the wolves is. Did you guys see Josh Peck, by the way, in the little Humvee, the armored vehicle at the beginning of the show? That was him kind of telling the story. It's nice to see just a cool little cameo like that. But, so it takes place in Seattle, this whole episode. Ellie and Dina are on the mission right now, right? They're in Seattle, they're in the city. They don't know where Abby and them are. So this is their main goal now that they're in here. Find Abby, get in, get out, and try to make as little noise as possible. Considering there's a whole entire army there. And there's certain parts in this show where Ellie, I'm going to be honest at this point, just kind of makes me mad, right? So Ellie and Dina, they're looking around. They're kind of exploring the city. And they find a tank. And they're like, oh, cool, I haven't seen a tank. Ellie just takes the lid, just boom, just opens it loud as crap, like we're not in Apocalypse or in a town where they have no backup. And I'm sitting here and I'm watching this, and I'm just kind of like, if Ellie was by herself, she's not making it, dog. There's no way. There's very little proof that I see of her character that Ellie knows exactly what she's doing in these scenarios. On top of that, they find a watchtower, right? So they're in this town. They pull security, right? Because Ellie just made a super loud noise. And they see a watchtower where people can watch them at. Ellie's like, you know what? Let's just go. Let's go to the watchtower right now. And Dinah's like, dude, will you take a chill pill? Right? It's broad daylight. We're in a city. They have rooftops all over us. And if we go up right now, they're probably going to see us. And Ellie's kind of like, yeah, you're right. Yeah, dude, use your head. Joel taught you better than this. This is so annoying to me watching this, is that it seems like Ellie just doesn't understand anything. And I get it, she's out for revenge, but she's also got to keep the mindset of, if she wants to get this revenge, she has to play smart. We're still in a post-apocalyptic world, right? We're still in a city where not a lot of a backup is. They don't know if anyone's going to show up and help them. They don't know what's going to happen. And I feel like Ellie isn't playing it smart at all, but Dinah's over here doing everything correctly, and I'd kind of rather have the roles reversed. I want to see stuff that Joel taught Ellie. I want to see Ellie being smart. I want to see her being strategic and more adult and more grown up, like, as she's taking on these endeavors. Maybe you think different. Let me know your thoughts on that in the comments. But so they kind of sneak around for a bit, get to know each other. Then we see some torture scenes, right? So the people that we found in the woods and between the wolves and everything like that, they have one of them chained up. Yeah, see his ball sack, as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, but he's pretty much getting tortured as they're trying to find out more information on where the next attack is going to be. And at that point, you see they're so loyal, right? He puts his hand out, he gets it burned with the pan, and then he takes it back, and then he interrogates him again. Yo, where's the next attack? What is going on? What is happening? He's like, we're not telling you nothing. He puts out his hand again as if he's ready to get burned. He's like, just do it. I'm not telling you nothing. And at this point, I believe his name is Isaac, right? Let me know in the comments if I got that right or wrong. He is just like, this guy isn't going to tell us anything. Pulls out his 9, bullet in the head. And the guards outside are like, one of them is kind of iffy on it. One of them's like, good. The man got what he reserved. And you just see, this is parts in the story when you realize that the people left in this world of The Last of Us are just as bad, if not worse, than the monsters. And they may be the worst monsters of them all. And that's kind of, I like the symbolism here with some of that stuff. And it keeps it interesting because we see more of that later on. So at this point, right, Ellie and them, they're looking around. It's nighttime. It's kind of raining. They're trying to sneak around, get into these places. And they spot a place they can climb into and take a look. The glass has been broken. It's on broken before. They're like, let's just climb up into there. This is when the show gets good, right? The beginning was kind of slow for me. I'm not going to lie. This is when this episode picks up. So they climb inside, take a look around. They see these bodies. They're hung from the ceiling. They're degutted. Their long intestines are just reaching the floor as they're hung 5 to 10 feet in the air, just bleeding out. These people are dead. And then it just gets more obvious at this point because we find out that Dina is indeed pregnant, right? Because she finds pregnancy tests later on. She goes, whatever, pees on them, and then she finds out she's pregnant, but Ellie doesn't know yet. So they walk in. Dina immediately dashes to the right. She has to throw up just from the smell. Okay, Ellie's like, whatever, I guess, it smells bad. They're hanging dead bodies. She thinks nothing of it, and why should she? So then they go around, they look around, and next thing you know, they see lights coming from the back, right? They're flashing. The security guards are coming in because one of them called backup right before she ended up dying. So they got to hide now. Now it's a stealth mission from the game. Can they make it out of this part without getting seen? I believe it's 3 or 4 guards. And they do. I love this scene a lot because it takes it from the game where there's more stealth. They got to sneak. They got to hide. You can't get seen here, or you don't want to because you're severely outnumbered, and they have radios, and they can call for backup. Ellie eventually makes it up a flight of stairs. Dinah's still behind somewhere, and I'm just like, is she just leaving Dinah? Is Dinah cooked right here? I didn't think Dinah was actually cooked, but I was like, how is Dinah getting out of this now? One of the guys follows Ellie up the stairs. He just has a hunch. He looks over, kind of sees the door maybe closed just a little bit. So he goes up to investigate, and then it's at the point where Ellie's like fight or flight. They go to fight. They're fighting back and forth, right? One of the guards comes up. Ellie's got him in a headlock, trying to use him almost as a body shield, okay? And I'm going to be honest. I find it hard to believe Ellie is holding her once. Now, I know she got a sneak attack on these guys. I get that, and then gets the headlock and locks in. It's just so hard for me sometimes to buy it, especially at the beginning of the show in episode 1 where she got body slammed by the guy in training. And he was like, yeah, I was holding back. And now I believe she's taking on another full-grown man who's probably trained. If maybe isn't. I don't know. It's just hard for me to believe. But so they're going back and forth. The second guy comes up. Dinah pulls out, comes back up, shoots one in the head, and they end up shooting the other one, and then they both get out through the window and get to safety. Now, at this point, it's radioed in, right? I don't even know if Abby knows yet, but surrounding reinforcements are now coming to hunt them down. They're running away. They're trying to sneak through areas. They crawl through a little crevice, right? Because they can fit. They're smaller. They're not as big as the full-grown men. So they crawl through there thinking they're safe. Dude, I love this scene right here. This is the best scene in the whole episode by far, in my opinion. So they get in. Security is immediately there because they've radio in. They know ways around the town. Ellie and them don't really. They're crawling through a small crevice for who knows how long. And then when they're in there, the guys, the wolves and all that, they're pulling security, right? They got their guns. Flashlights out. Looking around, scanning the area. They hear one, right? One clicker, one infected. Then they hear two. 2 clickers, 2 infected. 3 are going off right now. And then they start to talk back and forth. They're like, I thought this place was cleared. Isn't it supposed to be cleared out of all infected? And then next thing you know, boom, a whole horde busts through one of the doors and just starts taking them all out. At this point, this is Ellie and Dina's time to either run. Personally, I went back through the hole they came in. Maybe they couldn't. So they're like, the only way is on top of the train. So they get on top of the train to try and free themselves, right? And this scene is really good. When they're escaping from the infected, I'm glad we get to see more infected. And it's not just regular humans the rest of the show. That is really good because sometimes I feel like we overlook that this is still an infected post-apocalyptic world of The Last of Us. But so they're trying to escape. They have infected everywhere. They're trying to get to the train. The infected are crawling in through the glass, through the windows, trying to grab them. Ellie and Dinah finally find a hatch, right? Dinah gets up, uses Ellie as a boost. I love that. That's great teamwork. And then pulls Ellie up, and they eventually make it through. They get in the subway, right, to these kind of rotating doors. You guys know what I'm talking about. And it gets stuck. It's rusted shut. Ellie is free, safe on the other side. Dinah is not. One of the infected gets there early and goes to bite Dinah. Ellie puts her forearm up, gets bit, because she's immune. Don't forget that, guys. And then they finally get the door, and Dinah kills the infected, and they run away. The whole rest of the show, pretty much, Dinah's paranoid, right? Ellie's infected as far as we know. She doesn't know she's immune, and she's also pregnant, so she has to do what is best for herself and her child at this point. So Dinah's kind of just moseying around, like, waiting for Ellie to turn, and Ellie's like, oh, dude, you don't know. I'm immune, dog. And Dinah doesn't believe it. Why would she believe it? She hasn't heard of anybody being immune. And so they have a back and forth tension for a while. And she's like, you know what? I'm going to go sit over here. I'm going to go to sleep. And then we'll wake up in the morning, and you'll see that I'm still Ellie, and then it'll be fine. So Dinah's just kind of on edge the whole night out. They go to sleep. As soon as, like, Ellie wakes up in the middle of the night, Dinah's got the flashlight. She's got the 9 pointed at Ellie's head, and Ellie's like, it was just water. I told you, like, I'm not infected. Here's this. No shakes. I have nothing going on that shows that I'm infected. So then Dinah pretty much comes clean and goes, yo, you're infected. I got a baby in me, big dog. And Ellie's like, how do you know you're pregnant? And then instead of answering the question, they just start making out and having a little sexy scene action. I was like, all right. They're just doing it in the middle of the floor. All right. Safety first. So they kind of go through their whole scene, and then they wake up in the morning. Ellie's like, how do you know for sure, right, that you're pregnant? Like, how do you? And she's like, here's 1 pregnancy test. Here's 2. Here's 3. Here's 4. When she's pulling out the 4th test, I was like, all right, we're kind of getting, like, excessive at this point. Like, you really found 4 pregnancy tests right there. I get it. It's a show. It's for dramatic effect. But this is a post-apocalyptic world. And this girl found 4 pregnancy tests and ripped them all right then and there. Cool, whatever. So now the tension's kind of different. They hear radio calling, talking about Abby and some other people, and there's a massive fight going on in Seattle. Seattle's a battleground, man. There is no place safe there. Apparently, they've got infected underground, above ground. They've got war zones going on, essentially, for this time period in this show. And then Ellie's kind of like, yo, you don't have to do this, right? Things are different now. Now that you're pregnant, you can stay back, and I will do this by myself. That's awesome. Ellie also says she gets to be a dad. I don't know how that works, but I can't go into that. But so, and then she just knows things have changed from here as they're going around, and they both agree. I guess they're gonna have the kid together and raise the kid. Again, I did not play the games, but that pretty much wraps up this week's episode. But let me know your thoughts on this in the comments. Again, I don't think Ellie is carrying the show. I'm gonna stand by that. I think Dina's character is carrying the show for me, and I had to think at one point, if this show wasn't The Last of Us, right? If I didn't know what it was about, if I didn't love some of the characters, would I still be interested in watching this show? And I want you guys to ask yourself that in the comments as well. Would you still be interested in watching this episode, next week's episode, if it wasn't The Last of Us and this was just a random TV show about a post-apocalyptic world? I really want to know you guys' thoughts on that in the comments. But anyways, click subscribe, stay up to date. I'm going to keep you guys up to date on all gaming and movie news. Thanks for the love and support on the recent video, guys. I'll catch you next week's episode review.